Now, if, as I contend, the removal of the politics of history from historical study is an impossibility, then Senate Bill 83 is fundamentally misguided, if not disingenuous. And for this reason, what it assumes is that there is a politics of history present already that emphasizes diversity and inclusion and equity of issues. And this interpretation has sort of kind of run amok and dominates universities, especially in the humanities and so forth, to an unacceptable degree. Now, what the bill claims is, well, if you remove that, you remove those kinds of historical interpretations, then you removed political content from history. But if that's impossible, if that cannot be done, then what they have done is remove one interpretation of the politics of history and have tacitly, if not explicitly, substituted another politics of history, political understanding of history, which Senate Bill 83 and its proponents and so forth find more appealing, more comfortable with. And I am somewhat ready to embrace this view, not just because of my idea that politics of history is it's just there, there's no way to remove it, but also because this particular bill did not come out of the clear blue sky. There's a conservative kind of a think tank called the National Association of Scholars, and they have been antithetical toward issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion for years. And what they did was they created model legislation, which was adopted by the Ohio state senator who was the sponsor of the bill here in Ohio. But this model legislation has been adopted in other states as well. So the National Association of Scholars, has a very definite political agenda. Is it entitled to have a political agenda? Of course, it's entitled to have a political agenda. But I think it's disingenuous to sort of claim that that it's leveling the field somehow. I don't think that dog will hunt. However, there are elements in the bill that I regard as reasonable. I think legislation is a clunky way to accomplish what philosophically is at stake here. But I do think that some of the ideas are valid. And the idea that I consider to be the most valid is the reintroduction, I guess, or affirmation of intellectual diversity. I have seen in this university in the 30 odd years that I've been on the faculty all kinds of other diversity. But in terms of political or intellectual diversity, I have seen a great deal of uniformity. And I'll give you one anecdote. Some years ago, I asked the question in a department committee. I said, most of our graduate students are liberal, left of center, and we don't have a lot of conservative graduate students. And why is that? Is it possible that we inadvertently filter out conservative graduate students, prospective conservative graduate students, because we ourselves are liberal, and when an undergraduate comes in, who's bright and so forth, and their worldview is similar to ours, we have a sort of recognition of them, and we're more inclined to mentor them and to help them network and find their way into graduate studies. So there's a kind of systemic bias that we're perpetuating, and if we don't believe in that kind of systemic bias when it's applied to minorities, people with other sexual orientations, or what have you, I don't understand why it's valid to apply that kind of bias, systemic bias, in the case of graduate students who happen to have different political worldview. Another, though, available interpretation would be that conservatives, by and large, just simply don't choose the humanities. They go into other fields. But the point that I was making is it would be constructive and useful to figure out this, what the answer to this question might be. And the instant response I received was that conservative students, were just stupid, just not capable of graduate work, just like that, just that directly, just that brutally, and nobody else in the committee said a word. Now, I consider that unacceptable. I think it was disrespectful to me. I think that it was dismissive of an idea that I think deserves consideration, and I certainly think that it was an unacceptable slap in the face of students who happen to be politically conservative. So I think that the bill, in effect, has identified a problem that I have seen firsthand. The question is, is the bill a good way to address this problem, or does it have more potential for mischief than for anything else? And as we explore the politics of history as they apply to colonial slavery during the colonial period, I want us to sort of bear in mind the idea of making room for intellectual diversity in these discussions.